This video is to help you correct the homework from section 2.3.1, starting with problem 2.115. You can pause the video whenever you need to, make any corrections you have to, and then submit. So for 2.115, we had to complete the scaling for each number line or set of axes. Easiest way to do that, for example, for A, is to find the difference between the two numbers they give you, which is 64 minus 32. So 64 minus 32, of course, would be 32. And then you divide by how many sections or spaces there are. So 32 divided by 4 means that you're going by eights. So if you're going by eights, 32 is given, 40 is the next missing number, then 48, then 56, then 64, which was given. And of course, if you've done your scaling correctly, it should line up that way perfectly. Then 72, then 80. So again, find the difference between the two numbers, divide by how many spaces or sections. That tells you what increments you're going by. You're going by eights, and then you can figure out the missing numbers. For B, difference between 0 and 1, of course, is 1, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So you're going up by 1/4 or 70 or 25 hundredths, 0.25. So depending on whether you went with a decimal or mixed number, it's fine either way. So 0 was given. The next one would be 1/4 or 0.25, 25 hundredths. Then 1/2 or 0.5, 5/10. Then 3/4 or 75 hundredths, 0.75. 1 was given. 1.25, 1 and 25 hundredths, or 1 and 1/4. And 1.5, 1.5, or 1 and 5/10. For C, you're going by a different scale horizontally than you are vertically. This, of course, is the 0 spot. So 0 to 9 is a difference of 9 divided by 3 sections. And then 0 to 1 is a difference of 1 divided by 2 sections. So on the x-axis, meaning horizontally, you've got the 0, which again, they don't have to show. That is always that spot. Next one would be 3, then 6, and then, of course, 9. And on the y-axis, again, the zeros here, 1/2 or 5/10. 1 is given, and then 1 and 5/10 or 1.5. For D, the difference between 0 and 20 is 20, but you're dividing by 5 spaces, so you're going up by 4s. And the difference between 0 and 12 is 12, but you're dividing by 3 spaces, so you're also going up by 4s. So on the x-axis, missing numbers are 4, 8, 12, and 16. On the y-axis, it's 4 and 8. So in this case, you actually end up going by 4s, both horizontally and vertically. Then for the diamond problems, remember that with the diamond problem, and they remind you of that off to the side here, you've got the two numbers on the side, x and y, or whatever values they are. And then this is reminding you that the top is the product of those two, x times y. And then the bottom is the sum of those two, x plus y. So in this case, we know that when we multiply the two numbers, we need to get 0. And when we add them, we need to get 25. Well, the only two numbers that will do that are 25 and 0. Because 25 times 0 is 0, and 25 plus 0 is 25. Now, if you switch them, if you put 0 on the left and 25 on the right, that would be correct as well. And then for B, you're asking yourself first, what do you multiply by 6 to give you negative 30? Well, that would be negative 5, because negative 5 times positive 6 gives you negative 30. A negative times a positive gives you a negative. And then when you add the 6 and the negative 5, you get 1. For C, you're going to ask yourself, what do you add to the 11 to give you 25, which would be 14. And then 11 times 14 gives you the top, which is the product, 154. And for D, you're looking for two values that will multiply to give you 234 and add to give you 31. Again, that's a little more difficult to do. You may want to think about what adds to give you 31 first, and then just see if those two numbers do multiply to give you 234. And you are allowed a calculator. So you could try 31 and 0. Well, that obviously won't multiply to give you 234. 1, and 30, which will not multiply to give you 234. And you can continue to work your way down in pairs. What does work is 13 and 18. And again, if you switch the order, that's fine in this case as well. So 13 times 18 will multiply to give you 234. 13 plus 18 will add to give you 31. For 117, without a calculator, you need to copy it and simplify it. Make sure you're showing all your steps. So for A, I should first see that you've changed them to common denominator fractions. So 7 and 10 sixteenths plus 2 and 9 sixteenths. And then you're going to get a improper fraction answer. And then you're going to change it to the mixed number, which is 10 and 3 sixteenths. So you'll get 9 and 19 sixteenths, but that has to be changed to a mixed number, 10 and 3 sixteenths. Make sure you have the work shown. If you need to, you can insert a picture from your notebook. For B, you should change them both to a common denominator. Least common denominator between 8 and 6 would be 24. So this would be 2 and 21 24ths, multiplying by 3 top and bottom. 6 and 4 24ths, multiplying by 4 top and bottom, which gives you 8 and 25 24ths, which again is an improper fraction or a fraction greater than 1. So then you change it to 9 and 1 24th. Again, make sure you've got the work shown. And then for C, you're going to need to borrow or regroup because you can't take 2/5 away from nothing. So you end up with 8 becoming 7 and 5/5 because 7 and 5/5 is equivalent to 8. Now you can do your subtracting because you have done your borrowing or regrouping. So you end up getting 1 and 3/5. For 118, if you've got a regular deck of playing cards, what's the probability of getting a heart? Well, hearts are 1/4 of the deck. So 13 cards, out of 52, which simplifies to 1/4. And the probability of not getting a clubs would be 3/4. Because again, 1/4 probability of getting a club, so 3/4 probability of not getting a club. For 119, first of all, you wanted to talk about what was the mean, median, and range. So for the mean, you can certainly use a calculator, add them up, and divide by the number of values, 12 and 800ths, and that may be rounded. Median, put them in order, pick out the middle value, which is 12. And then the range is 4, difference between the largest and smallest value. And then what would basically be the best measure of central tendency, mean or median, to describe them. Measure of central tendency means a typical value. These are very close in value to each other, so you could use either one. The other thing you could say is since there's no outliers, mean would be a perfectly good way to describe a typical value. If there are outliers, then we need to go to median. And then for the checkpoint, 4300ths would be 4300ths as a fraction, 43%. 9/10 is 9/10 as a decimal and 9/10 as a fraction. 39% is 3900ths as a fraction, 3900ths as a decimal. And 16/25ths, you may want to divide to get the decimal or convert it to hundredths. Either way, you get 6400ths as a decimal and 64%. So that is your homework. Again, pause the video where you need to. Make sure you have the work shown that you need to, and then submit.